Пред 100 дена американскиот председател Доналд Трамп повторно ја презема овалната канцеларија. Огромен број на промени беа направени во овој период, промена на имиграцијската политика дома, такси, даноци, царини за остатокот од светот. Таквите одлуки предизвикаа дури и пат на некои влади, како, например, канадската. Што променија овие 100 дена од владеењето на Трамп на глобалната политичка сцена? Добре дојдовте во уште еден лавиринт, јас сум Кристина Атовска. Поминаа првите 100 дена од како американскиот председател Доналд Трамп повторно ја зема, односно повторно влезе во овалната канцеларија. Многу ветувања слушнавме во предизборниот период, а како и секогаш после првите 100 дена се прави една ретроспектива за тоа што е направено во првите денови, односно првите месеци од мандатот. На овие теми разговарам со репортерката Џалиса Дугро од Флорида, со која веќе некое време соработуваме во овој лавиринт и ни ја пренесува состојбата од Соединетите Американски држави. Џалиса Дугро, thank you very much for calling in my show again. We're going to talk about the latest news in the United States. The new president, old new president, since he took office, it's been 100 days. He celebrated with a meeting, with a rally. But now we're going to talk a little bit more about what have changed in the United States in these past 100 days. So we're going to start first with the question about what has happened with the prices about for ordinary Americans. Do you feel any difference in the prices? Because as we know, since Trump took office, he shook the whole world with his economic measures, the tariffs, and a lot of the countries around the globe actually put tariffs back on the United States. So do you feel the consequences of this economic policy of Trump?
Thanks so much for having me. So great question. I think that it's still a little too soon to tell on a grave scale, especially since he put those, those tariffs across 75 countries and then kind of rolled them back to 10% and then put that 90-day tariff pause on all the countries, I want to say, except Canada, Mexico, as well as China. So it's something that I think has been slow rolled for now. I do think he anticipated, let's say specifically with those extremely high tariffs that he put on China, maybe some economic effects on our technology, on, screen displays, especially, vehicles and things like that. Or else he wouldn't have hauled over 6 planes of, I think it was iPhones, it was confirmed. So, I want to say this was something he did expect. I want to say for the average American household, I think I was reading the statistic, is that your average expenses have increased by $1,200. This isn't something that I think your average American is noticing at first very instantly. It's not so apparent, rather than long term. You're doing your bills, you're looking at your expenses at the end of the month, and you're thinking these ones and zeros, like, how did we get here? So I think it's a little too soon to tell anything, like I said, on such like a grand scale. But I definitely think if this issue is not resolved very soon, if he does not, make concessions or, roll back these tariffs more, than before, we're going to see some catastrophic effects on the American people, as we're actually already seeing in the world economy. I mean, when Donald Trump rolled out these, bombshell tariffs on 75 countries, I mean, the stocks crashed after he announced those tariffs on April 2nd. I want to say we lost 5 to 6 trillion in value per the World Economic Forum. And, this affects people's savings, their investments. So, everybody was scrambling, and the entire stock was red. So people definitely panicked. They're kicking into overdrive, trying to do what they can. And so I think that's all we can do for now until we kind of start getting back to the table on what's going to happen with these 75 countries. We also know that per the White House media, they're engaging in a bit of an immature way, just kind of like angry tweeting and subtweeting. Because if we remember, the White House actually tweeted out, like, if you don't retaliate, you won't be punished. So they're trying to threaten, these countries into not imposing retaliatory tariffs on the United States. And so it's going to be either a tit for tat, or somebody's going to have to, to lay down the sword here. Getting Trump's remarks, I don't feel like it's going to be him, or I feel like he's going to really play the long game when it comes to these tariffs, especially with China. But all in all, for now, he did roll back those tariffs on majority of the 75 countries. Like I said, I think except for Mexico, Canada, as well as China. So we have a 90-day pause on that. Things are settled in that area. Again, omitting China, Mexico, and Canada. So I think we'll just have to see. But I mean, some effects are felt now. I did read that there was a pause. He did roll back the tariffs specifically when it came to, I want to say, iPhone technology and things like that, so that the technology sector wouldn't be super inflated for now. But again, Donald Trump changes his mind from one day to the next. He kind of, whichever way the wind blows, that's where he sets his sails. So it's really unpredictable. He's shown us how unpredictable he can be. I think American citizens are kind of bracing themselves at this point.
Well, we're gonna go back to his relations with the rest of the world. But first of all, I would like to ask about the protests that happened across the United States. They happened in the major American cities, and in this part of the world, we could hear from the American media that they have a lot of demands. They are protesting about the taxes, about the immigration politics. So what is going on with the protests? Are they over, or do you think that there will be another wave of protests, and what are the main demands of the demonstrators?
There's definitely going to be more waves of protest. I mean, we're definitely going to see more. They're not going to stop, because Donald Trump has shaken the American people since coming into the White House in January, and he has said made a lot of inflammatory comments, and then even more so is taking, I want to say, extreme action, to which American protesters are making these demands. For one, protesters don't want to go to war, or your American citizens are protesting. They don't want to go to war with Iran. They don't want, inflation in their taxes and, to be high, and their cost of living to be inflated. Women, they want the right to choose what they do with their body. Likewise, the immigration policy, which we'll touch on in a little bit, is scaring American citizens. It's a flagrant violation of due process and the laws that we have instilled in our country. Students and Americans overall, their right to their First Amendment is being infringed upon. We are being penalized for, voicing our opinions and peacefully protesting for things amongst others. And so Americans are in a really delicate place right now. Nevertheless, we remain, completely unwavering in taking our due diligence to exercise our right of protesting and making our demands heard. But we're in a very scary time right now. Many demands are being made, because what it's looking like is just chaos is going to continue to ensue under the guise of security. We can't be the arsonist and then play firefighter. We Americans know, how that's going to end. We see how it's affecting the perception of America on a global scale. We see how it's affecting people in the Middle East. We see how it's affecting women in our own country, families in our own country, and how we're going to see more protests for sure, because what's happening is all of the key major issues that Donald Trump may have led that he was going to approach moderately or in a more level-headed way, he's completely rolled back, is not doing that at all. It's been all extremely aggressive, and it's just not looking good for him. So Americans will definitely see more protests amongst them. And I want to say they're planning a new protest, if I can say. They're planning more protests, and I want to say it's a wave of 800. It's projected to be protests across the United States for these issues.
So what about the immigration? We mentioned it a while ago, but it was part of the pre-election speech of Trump or pre-election promises that he will deal with it. So what is happening in these few months since he took office? We could hear some arresting, detentions, and deportations. So what is going on?
A lot here. So Donald Trump pledged to deport millions of immigrants during his campaign. Even during his inauguration, it was reiterated many, many, many times. Now, the problem is what's happening now is we're ignoring and completely bypassing American citizens and those who reside in America, immigrants, their legal right to due process. And what Donald Trump is doing is he's quite literally, what we see in the media and in statements, is he's taking immigrants that he believes are here illegally. He's taking citizens that are here on, students that are here on F1 visas, people that are here with green cards. And if you have a dissenting opinion that goes against the United States government or the empire, they're taking you. If you protest on campus and you're an immigrant, they're taking you. If you're somebody that's been living here for years, you're a taxpayer, or, you pay taxes, you have a job in the United States, they're taking you. And what they're doing is we're finding that they're taking them to detention facilities inside of Louisiana, I want to say, but with no due process, no lawyers, and then they're getting immediately shipped out. Now, I want to say that he had high anticipation, or he anticipated high numbers. And I want to say for his first 40 days or so, those numbers were relatively high of the number of immigrants that he was deporting. But now it's looking like the number is less than 500. And if I speak correctly, I want to say it was above 700 was his goal, well above that, actually. So the numbers are continuously being reduced. They've stopped publishing the numbers because I don't think that they're reaching the goal that they want. Likewise, this entire policy comes with a plethora of problems. Let's take the example of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who came to the United States in the around 2010, I want to say. And he was here and was under a protective order in the United States to not be deported back to El Salvador because he feared for his life that gangs were going to kill him and kill his family. He was already being targeted back home. He came to the United States. He has an American wife, his wife is a United States citizen. He has 3 children here who have special needs. He's been working, paying taxes, participating American citizen. He's under a protective order and wasn't supposed to be returned back to El Salvador. Now, Donald Trump and the White House have admitted to deporting Kilmar Abrego Garcia under saying that it was an administrative error, that they weren't supposed to. However, in light of this, in light of Americans standing up for, this man and saying, okay, well, he was protected under United States law. It's a protective order. He could be in danger if he goes back home. The United States has made a joke of him, has made a mockery. Donald Trump invited the El Salvadorian president to the White House, to which he joked and said, he's not coming back. You decide what you want to do with him. You want to keep him? You want to bring him back? Not really up to us. Doesn't really matter. Incredibly unprofessional, extremely scary. Now, when we're getting into this, the Trump administration continues to say they're not going to bring him back, even though this was an administrative error on behalf of the White House, United States administration, who legally must bring him back. Donald Trump is in complete denial and contempt of a 9-0 Supreme Court ruling to bring him back. The Supreme Court voted and said, you must bring him back. Donald Trump has overruled this, has overridden this and said no. So what does it mean when our president of the United States can override the Supreme Court and doesn't have to follow the law himself? What does it mean when an individual, an immigrant, comes to America, albeit protected, though, under the United States American law, under a protective order, and can still be deported, and the administration is laughing at him and making memes about him and laughing and tweeting through official government channels, mind you. So likewise, let's say in that same conversation with the president of El Salvador, Donald Trump brazenly says, we're going to go for the homegrowns next. You might need to make room with some of your facilities in El Salvador. We're coming for the homegrowns, i.e. we're coming for American citizens. We see this now more than ever. ICE now, I'll speak for here in Florida.
Do you think he will do that, or you think it's just part of his speech or part of his jokes that are not very acceptable for the rest of the world?
Sure. I'll tell you, I think he'll do it. I do think he'll do it. because, you know, a lot of people look at this, and I even wrote about it, and some people were saying, no, Donald Trump is going to deport violent criminals. And I'm like, well, if we've learned anything from Donald Trump, this is a gateway. This is just opening the floodgates to taking us into the next step, which is, if you don't agree with us, if you're not in, you're out, which is what we're already seeing. Students that are here on F1 visas legally, students that are here on green cards, you know, and Donald Trump, if they exercise their right to protest, let's say with the war in Gaza, if they're protesting this, Donald Trump is detaining them, revoking their visas, and you're getting deported back to where you came from. I don't see any difference in why this would stop for an American citizen. One, he said it, but two, let's look at this. In Florida, ICE just signed an agreement with 11 universities inside of Florida to partner for campus police to partner with ICE to detain college students on their campus, to take them to a detention facility, no due process, no lawyers. We don't really know what's happening to them. And we see this now actually with green card citizens who came here, have a green card, are legally allowed to live in the United States. And the administration is saying, no, you have to leave because we don't agree with you. You're doing, it's too much. It's too much truth for them. So it's very scary, the things that he's implementing right now. He's scaring naturalized citizens. He's scaring immigrants that come here for a better opportunity, green card, F1 visa students. He's scaring them. So honestly, it's now open season on immigrants and naturalized citizens alike. So I think the support for him, people are losing this security that they felt for Donald Trump. Because if we notice in his 2016 campaign, he was heavy on that First Amendment right, your right to free speech, your free speech. And now it's like, if you say the wrong thing, if you go left and you're not right, let's say in the terms of free speech, you're out. Likewise, for, you know, the immigrants inside of America, they're not being allowed that due process. They're not being allowed to be represented. They're just being taken and deported. And now we're seeing, you know, children who are, you know, require extensive medical care are being deported with their mothers back to who knows where. And it just makes it all worse that he's making a joke of it. It's funny to him. This is extremely laughable to the entire administration. Caroline Leavitt, the new spokesperson, she gets on that stage. People ask her a question. If she doesn't like what your question, she tells you, like, I regret giving you the question. I regret even giving you the opportunity to ask me a question. Next, this is the entire premise of the Trump administration. So yes, in short, I do think that in years to come, that he's laying the groundwork and the foundation for immigrants, college students with dissenting opinions, and those American citizens who want to exercise their First Amendment right to be deported from the United States somewhere overseas, and he's going to offshore punishment.
Do you think the protest will have some kind of effect? Because the people are going out on the street to protest against his measures, his decisions. Do you think that will have some kind of effect in softening his decisions in the future?
It's hard to say. I don't think Donald Trump has ever been deterred by protests in general. Likewise, I want to say this has been going on for months, and it seems like he's not backing down. And if anything, I think he's surrounded himself. I remember we had a show right before Donald Trump was elected, and he was kind of building his cabinet up. And you asked me, like, do you think it's going to be easier, or he's going to be enabled to make some of his decisions because his cabinet is, you know, overwhelmingly, you know, Republican? Yes. And I think that this is why we won't see any like deterrent from Donald Trump, is because he's surrounded by people that just staunchly support these decisions that he's making in this future that he envisions for America. That is everything I referenced before. So I don't think and see a possibility right now where he's influenced or the protests really get to him. I couldn't really imagine when it comes to, let's say, the immigration policy that he takes a step back in any way. I don't see reality. Maybe with the taxes and the tariffs, I could possibly see a reality where the protests become so overwhelming. The American people are really voicing their opinion in such a strong way that he's like, let me reevaluate. But as far as maybe like that immigration policy, we'll just say for now, because we spoke about it, I don't see a reality where he doubles back.
So we mentioned it before. He made he provoked a lot of reactions from the rest of the world, the whole world actually. It's not just tariffs on China, it's not just tariffs on your neighbors, but also with the European Union and the European continent, and historically in this past few decades, European Union or Europe and the United States had great relations, both economic and political, so they were basically main partners on the global stage. But now we've seen something changed in this relation, and of course we're gonna go back to your neighbors, to Mexico and Canada, also the tariffs and his statements about Canada provoked their former prime minister to step down of the office and have shaken his party, and now they have a new prime minister. He won these elections because of his tough attitude towards Trump ideas, actually to make Canada an American state and to impose those tariffs. So he sent a clear message that he will not put up with this decision, and he regrets about a lost friendship between Canada and the United States. So what are the reactions in the United States? Reaction of the media, reaction of the the other political party, reaction of the people, because again, it is your neighbor.
So I think Americans, to start, when Donald Trump said that Canada would be the 51st state, were pretty taken aback. I have a lot of Canadian friends, up there, and I would always ask them, what are you thinking? And they were like, we do not want to be part of the United States. I'm like, okay, I get it. But, Americans as a whole, I think were pretty shocked when he was saying this, because this was coming with his comments about possibly taking Mexico. And then he was like Greenland. And so it was just all bunched up, but we were pretty shocked by his statements. But he definitely meant it. And I think that, Carney is like an establishment figure. He's pretty deeply connected to the inner workings of the Canadian power circles, for sure. He became the PM with support from the Liberal Party, kind of without having won an election.
He has a reputation diplomatic experience, but his reputation says that he is expert in dealing with economic crisis.
Yes. And so when it comes to economic crisis, I think a lot of Canadians are having overwhelmingly negative feelings, especially between the tariff war between Canada and the United States. I want to say that housing costs have increased by 30% inside of Canada, if I read it right. There are a lot of testimonies from Canadians who are like, it's impossible to buy groceries. It's impossible to buy groceries. It's, the rent, all of that included, but they're saying we can't buy food. And likewise, I've heard the same things from my friends up in Canada. And so, I think that Canadians are fed up. They want somebody that can represent them financially. They want, the inflation to go down. They want livable wages. They want to be able to have affordable housing. And it's been this way for some years. I think Trump just amplified this and inflated it, definitely with the tariff war. And so Mark Carni, who is a businessman, and I agree, has portrayed himself as somebody, establishes himself as somebody who can lead financially and kind of reverse this. I think that, the Canadians are prioritizing this maybe over the public perception of Donald Trump taking Canada. I think that they would rather have somebody in there who can reverse the situation financially inside of Canada and make negotiations so that they can live better. But I do think that the anxiety has grown around, Canada with Donald Trump's remarks, his annexation threats, the tariffs. And so I think Canadians have kind of swapped the trade-off on their list, is that on the election priorities of finances and then maybe annexation.
Yes, Mark Karni, the new Canadian Prime Minister, he had a very tough speech in front of his people in the past few days, and actually he made a record turn-off in his party, because the Liberals, the reputation of Liberals, or the polls were saying that they go down, but since Carney said that he will be the next candidate, something happened, and here we are. Canadians put their votes for a person like him, who promised to deal with this economic crisis. When we talk about promises, one of the main promises of the American president Donald Trump in the pre-election period was dealing with European war, actually, Russian aggression in Ukraine, and he promised he will end it in 24 hours. I mean, we keep talking about this promise, like ending the war in 24 hours. To be honest, nobody was expecting that something like that could happen, but we expected that some changes in these relations, but those changes for now are not enough to put an end on this war. They are not enough even to make a lasting peace or a lasting ceasefire. So in the past few days, the Pope died, so the American president met the Ukrainian President Zelensky in Vatican, but again, we haven't seen some effect of that meeting. So what are the American media saying and American public about this issue? And one more thing in these negotiations and in these relations is that America, all the officials from the United States, they say that they might back off from the negotiations from Ukraine. So what are the reactions now, 100 days later since he took office, and especially now after this short meeting with the Ukrainian president?
So Donald Trump, I mean, made it his goal to emphasize that we will bring this war to an end in 24 hours. Well, it's been 100 days and really no concessions have been made. I want to really say that not a lot of progress really has been made. I can't really say that a ton of progress has been made towards bringing the war to an end. So he's had much enthusiasm saying that he wants to end the war, but I do feel like this is a facade at best. I mean, we've seen multiple remarks from Donald Trump where his desire to end the war, him saying that this is the timeline to end the war. Oh, we've got something good going. We're going to end the war. And it's like he's saying a deal will be made, but nothing's really happening. And so this is what we keep seeing. He keeps saying something strong is in the works, but the United States, we have to understand, doesn't really abide by or really honor diplomacy. And I think that's something we have to really remember here. The United States on a global scale, and there are too many examples to even support this, is the United States doesn't really abide by or honor diplomacy. And so the fact that, Donald Trump would even continue this game of pretending that something could actually be done when I don't even think he's moving anything behind the scenes is kind of a game at best. I think that Ukrainians are overwhelmingly exhausted on the whole. I feel like it's okay to say that that's the public sentiment. Ukrainians are extremely exhausted from the war. Surely it's been years and years, since the war even commenced. But the Ukrainians want the war to end, but it doesn't necessarily look like that inside of Ukraine amongst Ukrainian diplomats, amongst the United States government. I mean, Donald Trump's cabinet also, the problem is that Donald Trump's cabinet is split down the middle with those who want to make concessions to end the war and don't even want to negotiate with Russia to spite Russia. And that's also a problem. That's what we're seeing. And so his administration is super split in that manner. Now, Russia also has a significant advantage on the ground. They've, expelled, I want to say, Ukrainian troops from Kursk. Ukraine has lost a lot of territory and experienced an extreme number of casualties also on the ground. They're still recruiting men. And so they're still trying to fight the good fight. But it's just when it comes to the drawing table and trying to bring that war to an end, we haven't had both sides really come and make, I think, true concessions that aren't red lines. Because what I feel like is happening is that Donald Trump is sending Zelensky in to make to that in these negotiations, it's Russia's red lines. And Russia has already said, like, Ukraine will not be a NATO member. You cannot have this, this, and this, and this. And so Donald Trump, I think, is pushing those red lines. I think what needs to happen is Donald Trump needs to meet with Putin directly. How are we going to be financing, backing the Ukrainian war against Russia? But Donald Trump won't even sit down. He's just angry tweeting, like, Putin, stop. Putin, I told you no. Like, I think Donald Trump needs to sit down with Putin and make serious demands, not make serious demands. But
again, is that the solution without Ukraine on the table?
Ukraine should be involved in that.
Europeans as well. They got very, very angry when they were not invited to the table the first time.
Correct. And they should have been, because you know what? This isn't about, we as an ally to Ukraine should have helped them in protecting their sovereignty in fighting the Russians off when they invaded Ukraine. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. The problem is now is that nobody is coming to the drawing board, I think, in a way that is effective in outlining serious demands for both. And I feel in my heart that Donald Trump is doing it on purpose, because he doesn't want to maybe make those concessions with Ukraine and maybe meet in the middle with Ukraine. And it's also becoming extremely expensive to continue to fund the war in Ukraine. It just is. And the public opinion on the Ukrainian war in the United States is dwindling. American taxpayers, there's a legitimate foundation that don't want to support the Ukrainian war anymore. So I think that Zelensky, and it's just, there's so much like nuance inside of this. But essentially, I think that Donald Trump should be doing more and shouldn't be so distant in negotiations. If it's that Zelensky requires assistance in reaching a ceasefire with Putin. But of course, I think there's also going to be a lot of tit for tat, because no ceasefire agreement is just reached overnight. But I definitely don't think right now I think the United States itself is also conflicted. I don't think the United States is on this like amazing green, straight green road of we want a ceasefire for good intent. I do think, like I said, that the administration is super split. Some of them don't want to make any concession with Russia at all to spite them. And even Trump has said he's going to impose more tariffs on Russia should they not, end the war or come to a ceasefire agreement. So, the entire situation is just really complex. I don't see it happening. I don't see a ceasefire coming about anytime soon. And that's just because of the landscape right now, because the right people aren't talking to the right people. They don't want to bring the EU as well as Ukraine to the talking table. Likewise, Donald Trump has made a mockery of Zelensky and it's so sad to say, keeps putting him in timeout. Really, it's really embarrassing, like sitting him down. Oh, you've come to the White House. We're not ready to talk to you yet unless you like fix your behavior and say thank you. Like, what is this? This is not, these are not politicians talking to each other. So it's like, I think once the United States administration, being the sole backer, straightens itself out and picks a side, essentially, that things will be able to translate more smoothly as far as the ceasefire negotiations.
So a lot of people believe that when Trump takes office, the wars everywhere in the world will be over, but that did not happen 100 days later after he's back in the Oval Office. And Џалиса, at the end, we could hear the last few days his ideas about another term, the third term, which is not traditional way of leading the politics in the United States. We know that the president have only 2 terms, and now we hear for the first time actually this ideas. So what is the opinion in the United States? Is this possible, or it's just another speech of the American president?
I want to say right now it's just another speech from Donald Trump going off on a tirade about his influence and how it needs to be extended, and America could be even greater with a third term in another 4 years. So, but you know what? I think, like, let's say he's saying it, but I think right now his reputation is speaking for himself. Like I said, we have so many negative things on the table. We've got his immigration policy, the infringement on the First Amendment rights for Americans, war in Yemen, war with Ukraine, war with, supporting the war with Ukraine and no ceasefire being met. We have all of these issues, these protests, that it's like, okay, you want to go for a third term? Would you win? Let's say that. Second off, the likelihood of that happening, I want to say I read that some laws would have to be passed. Forgive me, I don't have them right in front of me, but it's not something that could just easily happen, or something that he could just be voted into, where it would just, we could just propose the idea. It would definitely take a lot of restructuring, I want to say, within the law framework of the United States. And so, as far as it being realistic, I don't think so. I think it's as good as him saying he wants to steal Greenland and that Canada is going to be the 51st state. So, I hope that doesn't happen, because right now,
as you can see, these statements are causing the fall of some governments around the world. So, for other countries, those statements are not just statements.
No, they're not just statements. And it would affect, actually, on the global stage, interaction with other countries for sure. And so that's what makes it so scary, is the fallout is like, the immediate results is, sure, he's president for a third term, but what does this mean, for other presidencies? What does this mean for, international relations? How does this affect, summits and things like that, or peace agreements, or, like energy agreements and things like this? Like, how do these translate? What is solidified? What will be knocked off as soon as the president leaves? It's just, it's I wouldn't even entertain it right now, but it's scary to think about. I, as an American, actually, with everything I've told you, I am scared. There's a lot happening. And right now, I would not feel comfortable endorsing him for a third term at all. The second term was scary enough.
Yes, as far as I saw, the polls are not going up since he took office, but let's see, he's just at the beginning, and as you said at the beginning of our conversation, most of the things he does are long-term, and we're going to feel the effect maybe in few years or few months. So we're going to talk again. Thank you very much for this calling, and see you again soon.
Thank you so much, Christina. Have a good one.
Од сад се селиме во соседна Србија. В текот на изминатите месеци огромен број на протести се случуваа низ цела Србија. Студентите не престануваат ниту со протести, ниту со нивните подвизи, сега веќе на пат до Европа, за да ја објаснат состојбата во нивната држава. Политичарите и политичките партии одлучија да ги послушаат студентите во нивните првични барања и да седат малку понастрана, односно да не дозволуваат да ги скомпрометираат студентите или студентското движење, но сепак речиси сите опозицијски партии доаѓаат на протестите кои тие ги организираат. На еден од нив разговарав и со лидерот на Новата Демократска партија во Србија, Милош Јовановиќ. Интервју кое ви го должиме некое време, но сепак акцентот го ставивме, односно фокусот го ставивме повеќе на самите студенти, токму затоа денеска го пренесуваме овој разговор. Јовановиќ е и пратеник во Српското собрание и начело на оваа партија која е десна по убедување и ке видите, ке слушнете сами во интервјуто какви се нивните планови или нивните замисли за тоа каква треба да биде Србија и што следно треба да се случи за да заврши политичката криза во која се наоѓаат во моментов. Од Флорида се селиме во Ниш. Господин Јовановиќ, пуно вам хвала за ово интервју. Прво реците нам дали поддржавате ове студентски протести. Видимо вас у Нишу на овај дан, 1. март, каде е најавлен овај највеći можда протест. Какво е ваше мишлење за ово што ради студенти?
Наравно да поддржавamo, нешто удварamo студентима. Ја сам од они кои веројатно едини на политичкој сцени зна студенте радим. Ја сам бавим се јавним послом. Pa nažalost još uvijek docent, ali da, nastavnik na univerzitetu, Pravnom fakultetu u Beogradu, tako da znam i svaka im čast i zaista sam ponosan na sve što su uradili, a sam jedan od rekih koje je isticao da studenti ne mogu sami. Prosto ovakve autoritarne režime, kakav mi imamo trenutno, ne može niko sam da sruši, niti može to samo šetnjama. Čini mi se barem da ćemo u nekom trenutku morati malo podignemo ulog i da kao celo društvo moramo da reagujemo, jer u krajnjem slučaju ovo stanje u društvu nije odgovornost studenta. Dakle, oni su radili više nego što su mogli i ponavljam, kad ih vidim u holu Pravnog fakulteta, zaista osjećam ponos, ali studenti po definiciji stvari su samo studenti. Ljudi koji su mladi, po definiciji, koji tek treba da steknu i profesionalno iskustvo, i životno iskustvo i dakle, da uđu u aktivan život, da stvaraju sutra porodice. Tako da oni su svoj deo posla uradili preko svake mere i preko svakog očekivanja. Sad je na nama, ja se bavim javnim poslom, politikom, dakle ne bežimo od toga da kažem da hoću da preuzem odgovornost. Dakle, sve su to stvari koje su elementarne, volio bih da svi mi kao društvo malo izađemo sa tim istim stavom da bi na kraju nekakav uspeh postigli. A verujem da ćemo postići uspeh jer ovi protesti, pitam da li podržava, naravno, nismo mi čak ni čekali studente, dakle mi smo u borbi kao opozicija niz godina unazad. Uspjećemo zato što mislim da ovo više ne može da stane, dakle da su ovi nepovratni procesi, da kada vlast izgubi legitimitet da se on teško vraća.
Protesti su bili i pre nego što su studenti.
Znači, ovo prvi put da dajem intervju s Kolce koji je svirao u pozadini, ali eto, za sve postoji prvi put.
Neće to toliko da se sluša.
Vidim da vam mami smeh, tako da nekaj, to je lepo. I vama i koleginici, a i meni. Što znači da je stvarno dobra atmosfera.
Da, stvarno je dobra atmosfera. To ne možemo da osporimo. Napolju su svi srećni, svi plaču. Bili su protesti i ranije, ali nije bila ovakva atmosfera. Došla sam ja i u proteklih par godina u Beograd na protest, ali nikada nisam videla nešto ovakvo sa ovakvu energiju. Jeste ovo očekivali? Jeste očekivali da će studenti da probude celu Srbiju?
Pa nije niko razmišljao u tom smeru, ali pazite, kap po kap ta se čaša punila, čaša žuci ili čaša nezadovoljstva ili kako god hoćete to da nazovete. I u tom smislu nisam bio nikada pesimista, dakle znam koliko je srpski narod veliki, znam da vredi više nego što ponekada pokazuje vlast koju trenutno imamo i danas nisam pesimista. Šta se desilo? Mi živimo u režimu gde su političke stranke i politike, nije to samo slučaj sa Srbijom, kod nas možda još posebno, nekako ukaljani, oprljani, nešto smo mi sami po sebi prljavi. Ja, kažem, ne živim od politike, imam svoj posao, imam neku biografiju, imam neku doslednost. Znate, kad ste 17 godina u opoziciji, to ipak govori nešto o vama, da se ne prodajete i da ideje u koje verujete zaista se za njih i zalažete. A onda se desilo da studenti, i to moramo budemo pošteni, nakon prvobitne reakcije opozicije, svih nas u Novom Sadu, opozicija u Novom Sadu nakon te nesreće, a mi nazivamo ubistvom ovde u zemlji 15 ljudi pod tom nastrešnicom Novosadske železničke stanice. Prva opozicija Novosadska, dakle i naša stranka i naši partneri iz POKS-a, naša koalicija i sve druge stranke su krenule u akcije i blokade institucija i tu čuvenu akciju Zastani Srbiju 11:52 kad se desila nesreća, pa onda 15 minuta za tih 15 žrtava. I onda proteklo 2-3 nedelje i studenti su polako prišli tome. I sad šta je dobro sa studentima? Studenti nisu kategorija koju možete da napadnete. Miloša Jovanovića možete da nazovete Francuz, Šiptar, Koljač, nema šta nisam bio poslednjih godina, mislim, od strane medija režimskih, a za studente ne možete da prikačete tu vrstu etiketa.
Ali ipak su etiketirani od nekoliko medija.
Pa jesu, pokušano, ali kako bih vam rekao, to je sad ne upoređujem studente i nas, ali kako bi neko rekao da mrzi bebe ili da mrzi lepe, slatke, mislim, prosto studenti su mladi ljudi, ljudi koji se školuju, koji su budućnost naše zemlje. čak i ako pokušate im lepiti etikete, što je pokušano u početku od strane ovog režima, kontraproduktivno je. I sad vidite da režim sve najbolje priča o studentima u nadi da će uspeti da ih privoli i da se primire. Aleksandar Vučić je više puta rekao da su studenti pobedili, ali studenti su kudikamo zreli, inteligentni, da ne nasedaju na neku vrstu, ja bih rekao, jeftinih trikova.
Ali također je rekao i da je pobedio šarenu revoluciju. To pretpostavljam, šarena revolucija je termin od onaj naš makedonski primer. Kako je on to?
Ja inače moram da kažem, ja ne volim mnogo da pričam za strane medije. Koliko god nama Makedonija bila bratska država i makedonski narod, bratski narod i nemamo bliže, mislim, da se ne lažemo, ali formalno pravno smo dve različite države i ne volim puno da kritikujem stanje u zemlji, pa čak i vlast, koji sam najvatreniji opozicionar, naročito zbog kosovske priče i tako dalje. Ne volim mnogo da kritikujem, ali što se tiče te besmislice o obojnoj revoluciji, ja znam da studentima niko ne upravlja. Da li možda pokušavaju razne grupe da instrumentalizuju, da utiču? Vrlo verovatno. Ali ponavljam, studenti su pokazali i snage, i pameti, i zrelosti više nego neki ljudi koji pokušavaju da na njih utiču. I ja mogu da tvrdim za studente na Pravnom fakultetu da se zaista iz vrlo čestitih pobuda su se podigli, da niko ne utiče na njih. Ja prvi nikad nisam pokušao, bilo bi mi ispod časti da ja radim svoj deo posla na koloseku političkom. Oni rade svoj deo posla ili dužnosti i to sjajno funkcioniše. Dakle, ovde nema slova O od obojene revolucije. Dakle, nema ništa od toga. To je isto jedna farsa Aleksandra Vučića kako bi pokušao da isprlja ovo što se događa. Ovo je buđenje naroda i tu su studenti, tu su građani. Mi smo došli danas iz Knjaževca, gde smo bili juče na protestu i videli naš odbor. Tu su kolone automobila, ljudi izlaze, oni koji nisu automobilima, izlaze na terase u Svrljigu, tapšu, gledaju, mašu zastavama, dižu 3 prsta. Mislim da ovo neće stati. Što ne znači da će posle biti lako. Neće biti ništa lako, ima puno i lovaca u mutnom, ali mislim da neke promene moraju da se desi.
Pitaću vas posle i za posle, a šta mislite za to što su se studenti ogradili od sve stranke i političke?
Pa dobro je što su se ogradili od stranaka, jer to onog trenutka kada bi oni napravili grešku i rekli Miloš Јовановиќ je super, ili neko drugi je super, od Đalisa preko, više ne znam, Mike Aleksića ili Radomira Lazovića, tad bi napravili razdor unutar svog pokreta. Dakle, jedno je reći nećemo stranačku politiku i to potpuno podržavam. Niti ja, ni ti ko pokušava od stranaka da se, kao što neki vole komentatori da kažu ili pokušaju da kažu, da se nametne, da se nakači, da sad iskoristi. Ne, uopšte nije to ideja. Znači, dobro je što se ne bave stranačkom politikom, ali to ne znači da treba da beže od politike, pa čak ni od opozicije, jer ovo mora se rešava političkim sredstvima, pod jedan. Pod dva, i ovo što oni rade je politika u najplemenitijem smislu te reči. Dakle, studenti su iskazali zabrinutost za stanje u zajednici, koji pripadaju nacionalnoj zajednici, građanskoj, kako god hoćete, zajednici koja čini Srbiju. Neće više da igraju po ovim pravilima igre gde je partijska država zamenila pravnu državu i da ne nabrajam sad dalje sve mane koje danas postoje u srpskom društvu i u srpskoj demokratiji koja je sve manje, sve više autokratsko društvo nego što je demokratija. Dakle, to je, kažem, definicija politika je to. Politikos politea, zajednica, ustrojstvo. Znači, studenti hoće da menjaju stvari koje danas postoje, kao što hoću ja kao opozicija. Znači, ne treba bežati od reči politika, niti od političkog. Jer u krajnjem ishodu sve će morati preko nekakvih političkih stranaka, moje, neke drugih stranaka opozicije ili nekih potpuno novih stranaka koji će biti pravljenje. Hoću da vam kažem, jedno ograditi se od stranačke politike, poštujem i mislim da je izuzetno inteligentno i pametno i da je to jedini način. A drugo je reći, mi se ne bavimo politikom uopšte. Ne, ovo je u biti politički protest, u najplemenitijem smislu te reči, ponavljam, tako treba da ostane, ali recimo ja mislim da ne bi bilo zgoreg da studenti ponekad oslušnu ono što se opozicija dogovorila, recimo da je rješenje prelazna vlada. Prelazna vlada koja će imati jedini zadatak da radi na stvaranju uslova za slobodne i poštene izbore. A kad se organizuju slobodni i pošteni izbori, može da se kandiduje kogod hoće, da dobije koga god građani većinski izaberu, ja ću prvi čestitati tome ko dobija, ako to ne budem ja ili moja koalicija i tako dalje. Mislim, i to je zapravo suština priče.
Kolike su šanse da dobijete ovaj zahtev za tehničku vladu? Jer to već postoji neko vreme kao ideja, jer to smo i mi uradili, što je bilo, pa mogu da kažem, jedini način da izađemo iz te krize, upravo zato što opozicija ima svoj deo u organizovanju izbora.
Pa, tako je.
Da li će vladajuća stranka da prihvati tehniku, jer sve što kažu do sad, kažu da neće?
Pa da, mnogo su oni govorili da neće, pa su nešto uradili, mislim, zavisi od pritiska. Zato bih ja volao prvo da se taj zadatak koji se iskristalisao već u javnom mnjenju opozicionom za prelaznom vladom, da bude zaista sad prihvaćen od svih aktera u političkom životu, uključujući od studenta. Mislim da bi to bilo dobro, ali nikada ja to neću njima reći. Oni će raditi kako smatraju da je ispravno. Ako bi se to desilo, onda ostaje, znači što se mene tiče, cilj je prelazna vlada, jer je druga opcija revolucija. Mislim da revolucija nije poželjna, mislim da nije ni primjerena, mislim da nema ni uslova, mislim da nije dobra za društvo, jer je to onda uvek nasilje i tako dalje, dakle to treba izbjegavati po svaku moguću cenu skoro. U tom smislu, ako nije revolucija, onda mora kroz izbore, da bi došli do slobodnih izbora, vi nemate druge nego da napravite prelaznu vladu, jer ako opozicija ne bude učestvovala u organizaciji izbora i kontrolisala kako se sprovode sve mere koje eksperti treba između ostalog da navedu šta se treba promeniti da bismo došli do slobodnih izbora, onda nema promene. Dakle, prelazna vlada je uslov za oslobođenje, znači jedini politički izlaz je prelazna vlada. Ako se oko toga dogovorimo svi zajedno, odnosno u vezi s tim se dogovorimo svi zajedno, uključujući studente i građane, onda ostaje samo pitanje kako pritisnuti ovu vlast da to uradi. Ovo je jedan od načina, ali nedovoljno dobar, ovo je dobar način da zagreje atmosferu. Bez generalnog štrajka, bez blokade institucija, bez nekih drugih stvari, mi to uspeti nećemo. Ali ja, kažem, čini mi se da ide sve ka tome i da će prosto događaj i volja da se nešto promeni nadjačati, možda i sada, neću reći strahove, ali možda i rezerve određenih ljudi, čak i u opoziciji, prema nekim malo odlučnim akcijama i da će sve doći na svoje. Ponavljam, proleće je blizu, nije da ja sad se nešto mnogo pouzdam u meteorološke uslove, ali verujte, kad protest preživi zimu, velike su šanse onda da na proleće da svoj pun rezultat.
Ima li kapacitet opozicija da preuzme vlast praktično, jer u proteklih 3, 4, 5 godina videli smo baš svakakve situacije. Opozicija se udružavala, onda se opet rasitnjavala. Kakva je...
Svašta je tu bilo, pazite, nije ni lako biti, pravila je opozicija greške. Nek bude da smo mi učestvovali u tim greškama. I onako nikad nismo bili deo te građanske, proevropske opozicije, dakle mi smo nekako tu dosta samostalni i idemo svojim pravcem, trasiramo svoj put i ne osjećamo se puno. Ali neka bude da smo i mi bili deo tih grešaka, recimo. Ali možemo da kritikujemo opoziciju, ali ne treba zaboraviti da nije lako biti opozicija u jednom autoritarnom režimu. Ovde momke, neke ste videli članove moje stranke i POKS-a, ljudi su gubili poslove ovih proteklih godina, zaposlenja čak i u privatnim firmama, ljudi su žrtvovali i vreme, i energiju, i novac, i rizikovali mnogo toga, i porodične živote, i brakove uz ovu borbu. Dakle, znate, lako je kad neko dođe s polja ko nije bio u borbi, onda kaže, evo, vi ste loši. A možda nismo najsjajniji, ali nije lako boriti se u nečemu što baš nije demokratija. Prva stvar. Druga stvar, morat ćemo. Uostalom, nije ideja sada, ja nisam od tih optimista, sad se skloni Vučić i bit će sve sjajno i med i mleko će neće ništa da poteče. Bitno je samo da možemo da smenjujemo svaku narednu vlast. Izaberite mene, ja tražim odgovornost, ako se ne pokažem dovoljno dobrim za vođenje države, na sledećim izborima ćete izabrati nekog drugog, pa ćemo nekog trećeg, a to je valjda suština. Ne treba biti u tom smislu mnogo ambiciozan da sad pašće Vučić i sad će odmah da bude sve rešeno. Pitanje Kosova i Metohije, Srbija će da sija, ne. To je dugotrajan proces, višegeneracijski. Ali barem bitno da krenemo od ove elementarne normalnosti, da mediji funkcionišu, da pluralizam postoji, da može da postoji javna debata argumentovana i bez uvreda, na koju smo sad već svi oguglali i navikli, koje servira SNS. Da možemo da biramo slobodno na izborima i da možemo da menjamo slobodno vlast. Ja ću vas podsjetiti, i Boris Tadić, kome sam ja bio opozicija, i Vojislav Koštunica, čiji sam bio potpredsednik, kome sam bio potpredsednik, su otišli sa vlasti kad su izgubili izbore. Najnormalnije izgubili izbore, nisu mogli da naprave većinu u parlamentu, rekli doviđenja, prijatno.
Dobro, ako vlast drži i dalje ovakvu situaciju, onda će uvek da pobeđuje na izbore.
Ne da će pobeđuje, nego u jednom trenutku će da obesmisli izbore od te mere da ih neće ni održavati. Neće ih ne održavati, zavešće pravu diktaturu. Ovo je mnogo ozbiljniji trenutak nego što mi mislimo, jer su međunarodne okolnosti takve da ne pogoduju više toliko demokratijama koliko autoritarnim režimima ili autoritarnim refleksima u pojedinim državama. Meni ideja da neko bude 20 godina na vlasti nije bliska, čak i se radilo i o meni. Nije mi bliska, jer to je nekako patološko stanje društva. Dakle, demokratija po definiciji podrazumeva smenjivost. Ajde prvo to da obezbedimo, pa ćemo onda lagano rezultate da ostvarujemo manje brzo, brže u zavisnosti od kvaliteta svih nas, jer lako je napadati opoziciju, ali znate, nešto i do medija, nešto i do građana. Kako bih rekao, te medije koje kritikujem čine neki ljudi. Što su dozvolili da budu propagandni servisi u interesu jednog čoveka ili jedne grupacije. Mislim, građani su mogli ranije da izlaze na proteste. Što uvek veruju propagandama režima da sam ja ovakav, da je onaj drugi iz opozicije onakav, da smo svi mi loši. Mislim, u nekom trenutku demokratija ipak zahteva zrelost, ozbiljnost i neku vrstu posvećenosti svih građana. Tako da, ali kažem, ja sam strpljiv i znam šta radim i znamo šta radimo kao stranka i kao koalicija. Ovo ide u dobrom smeru. Ja bih samo voleo da ova vlast shvati da ako je ostalo trunke razuma kod njih, nisam siguran u to, ali ako je ostalo trunke razuma kod njih, da shvate da ovo treba završiti na legitiman i normalan način pre nego što, ne daj Bože, se situacija zakomplikuje i pre nego što, ne daj Bože, padne krv, jer moram da vas podsjetim, u nekom trenutku je pre par nedelja dolazilo do ozbiljnih nasrtaja na fizički integritet demonstranata i studenata. Gažene su studentkinje, jedna je mogla da izgubi glavu jer udarila baš glavom u ivičnjak, pločnik, što je, i to je inače studentkinja pre toga u Rooseveltova, jedna bila brucaškinja na mom fakultetu, na pravom fakultetu, to su stvari koje su nenormalne. Dakle, tad je već moralo da se stane na loptu i se kaže ajde sednemo svi da razgovaramo kako da izađemo iz ove krize. Nadam se da će to biti, a da ne bude prekasno za nekog od nas, da neko ne izgubi, ne daj Bože, život u svemu ovom.
Vi ste blokirali i ono čuveno Expo koji sad gradi...
Famozni, da.
Famozno Expo. Ono što smo mogli da pročitamo u medije, jer većina medija su provladina, to je jedan veliki javni linč protiv vas. Čak i to da ste nosili...
Koljač, da sam koljač.
Da ste nosili nož, da ste
Išao sam
hteli
da koljam kamenje i pesak i travu.
Šta mislite vi o to Expo? Da li će da se doizgradi do kraja?
Ako Aleksandar Vučić ostane na vlasti, hoće.
A ako ne?
Verujem da neće. I ne treba, ali Expo je tu samo simbol. Dakle, Expo je, reći ću uslovno rečeno, jedan od najmanjih problema. Kada nemate slobodu i pluralizam, nije vam to gradilište, šta god ja mislim o njemu, mislim samo negativno i to je izvor korupcije neverovatan. Nije tu u odnosu na pitanje slobode i ponižavanja jednog naroda najvažnije pitanje. Mi smo išli tamo kao simbol, išli smo tamo znajući da vlast ne može da ne reaguje. Oni su doveli žandarmeriju, bilo je takih 9 kombija i 2 autobusa, nisu intervenisali, su znali da smo mi tu u 8 sati, mi smo to najavili kad smo došli na lice mesta, mi smo najavljivali pre, neče ne bismo ni stigli dotle, morali smo malo u tajnosti da radimo tu operaciju, a kad smo došli rekli smo tu smo jedan radni dan, 8 časova, vratit ćemo se u nekom trenutku, a to nećemo da otkrivamo kada i kako, ali znali su da nisu hteli da rizikuju intervenciju i tuču sa narodnim poslanicima, samo bi dali dodatnu reklamu i dodatno bi podigli tenziju, ali suštinski oni ne mogu da puste da se to gradilište blokira. Tako da je to dobra meta i simbolički i operativno i kažem, vraćat ćemo se i mi, nadam se i mnogi drugi. Moja bi ideja bila sjajna da predložim studentima, ali ja neću ništa predlagati direktno njima, kažem, ne mešam se. Ali kad bi neko od njih rekao, ajmo svi na Expo da zaposednemo to gradilište, da pozovu i građane i tu je opozicija, 10.000 građana na gradilištu, to nema te žandarmerije koja može da istera to sa gradilišta. Kampujemo, donesemo šatore, napravimo ovako ovu lepu atmosferu, napravimo i tamo. Ja sam se u polušali rekao da napravimo Woodstock na Expo da vidimo kako će to izgleda. I završit ćemo mi s tim čim on kaže u redu, shvatio sam, moramo da razgovaramo. Tako da je Expo tu bilo stvarno dobra meta i bit će drugih meta, prosto mi moramo da dižemo uloge. A što se, kažete, linča, kako ste rekli, linčovan sam, ni prvi ni
kako se
poslednji.
nosite sa sve što čitate o vama u mediju?
Pa ne čitam. Mislim, stvarno ne čitam, ne pratim jer je besmisleno čitati to, Informer i Pink i šta pišu, to je... Inače se nosim dobro, ja to shvatam kao ordenje koje mi Aleksandar Vučić daje. Časno je biti protiv ovakve vlasti danas u Srbiji. Prosto je časno i ljudski, mislim da se nisam osramotio i da sutra kad me deca pitaju i da će Bog unuci da ih dočekam, deda, gde si bio, šta si radio, moću im pokažem, evo ako ništa, barem par naslova, kao dokaz da sam bio na pravoj strani. Inače me stvarno ne dotiče, to su takve besmislice i da ne dužim puno. Ne može čovjek da sakrije svoju suštinu. Niko ne može da sakrije ono što jeste. Mislim, neko možda može da glumi u politici da je ne znam nešto što nije, to će se pokazati. Građani to vrlo dobro vide. Kao što studenti vrlo dobro vide kad uđemo mi kao nastavnici u amfiteatar ili u salu, verujte, posle par nedelja tačno znaju ko je kakav, ko zna, ko ne zna, ko se folira, ko je dobar čovjek, sve se zna. Klinci u osnovnoj školi to znaju da prepoznaju, kamoli studenti, a kamoli građani. Tako da ta kampanja, bio sam ja, kažem, i Šiptari, i Francuzi, i šta nisam, i teo sam bacim Vučića sa terase po njihovoj toj propagandi, to se brzo zaboravi jer prosto nema veze sa istinom.
Moram da vas pitam još jedno
Ja ću malo
pitanje
nije problem za kameru, izvinjam se.
o potencijalnim izborima. Ako bude došlo do ova prelazna vlada ili tehnička vlada koju vi tražite, postoji li način, postoje li želja, kakvi su vaše planove, da li ćete ići ujedinjeno sa druge opozicijske stranke ili ćete ipak nastupiti sami?
Pa to će biti veliko pitanje, ali ajde, ja bih volao, to su slatke muke, verujte, to će biti slatke muke jer treba doći dotle da dođemo do prelazne vlade i da se oslobode mediji. A onda sam ja nekako uvijek bio pobornik da u nekom trenutku, jer ne može politika bez politike, da budem potpuno jasan, ne može biti politike bez političkih opredeljenja. Jedna ova borba koja je zajednička svakom normalnom čoveku, da bude slobodan, da ne bude ponižavan, da mu ne zavisi život, posao i porodica od stranačke knjižice bilo koje stranke. I to je u redu. Kad to ostvarimo, onda se ipak vraćamo na teren čiste politike, takođe u plemenitnom smislu, a to su političko opredeljenja. Da li ste vi za Evropsku uniju, članstvo Srbije u Evropsku uniju ili niste? Da li ste potpuno odlučni da branite teritorijalnu celovitost zemlje i Kosovo i Metohiju u njenom sastavu ili baš niste toliko odlučni? Šta mislite o brakovima za istopolne osobe? Šta mislite o poreskom sistemu i poreskoj politici? Dakle, onda ulazimo u te stvari koje su vrednostne, gde treba da se razlikujemo i gde treba građanima dati ponudu, svako shodno sopstvenom uverenju, dati građanima ponudu pa da građani shodno njihovim uverenjima biraju ovaj mi se čini čovjek od poverenja ili zastupa moje ideje i da u punom smislu te reči vratimo politiku u politiku. Tako da to je uvek zdravija priča nego stalno nekakva okupljanja. Pazite, mi ako dođemo do prelazne vlade nismo pobedili u ovoj borbi za demokratiju.
Kad pričam sa moje kolege iz Srbije, oni kažu pa nama je malo teže jer i stranci podržavaju Vučića i Evropske unije i Ujedinjenih Američkih Država. Kakav je vaš stav za to? Jel vidite tu podršku koju dobije Vučić i jel vidite neku potencijalnu podršku koja može da dobije opozicije?
Pa kao i za ovo linčovanje, ne bavim se time. Ja nekako naivno verujem, a ovo naivno, zapravo kad kažem ne mislim da je naivno, mislim da je jedino ispravno. Da su naši problemi naša stvar i da naši problemi zahtevaju naša rješenja i da niko sa strane nije tu da, ako vas vrbe leđe, da vas počeše, dakle to je naš posao. Ne znam da li ga podržavaju ili ga ne podržavaju. Ne bih nikad tražio podršku s polja za sebe, zaista nikada. I to se ne šalim, nikakve vrste podršku ne bih tražio za sebe. Tražim podršku za zemlju kada budemo preuzeli odgovornost, ali to je drugo pitanje. Dakle, za nas je ne tražimo, opozicija i građani ove zemlje i narod mora sam da se izbori. I uopšte ta pitanja, ja razumijem jer se postavljaju, znači kod nas u eliti postavljaju često ta pitanja, pa i stalno ljudi promišljaju u tim kategorijama. Ja mislim da to pokazuje neku vrstu nezrelosti koja meni nije draga, prosto, što se kaže, usi u svoje kljuse, naši problemi, naša rješenja i to isto neki proces sazrevanja. Tako da, izvijem se što odgovorim ovako na vaše pitanje, ali ne umem bolje spoljna podrška bilo čija, ni istoka, ni zapada, odnosno ni zapada, a ni istoka, mene zanima na nama da završimo.
Gospodin Jovanović, puno vam hvala za ovo intervju. Sad ću vas i za vreme koje ste potrošili sa nama, sad ću vas ostaviti da uživate u ovaj dan, pretpostavljam.
Muzika je prošla, otišla je dalje.
Pretpostavljam da i vi bi hteli da izađete napolje, gde mogu da kažem da je cela Srbija došla u Niš danas.
Jeste, veliki deo Srbije, ali nadam se ćemo doći u situaciju istorijsku kada ovakve scene više neće biti potrebne, kada ćemo stvari unormaliti kao država. Mada, dajde završimo s tim, ovaj nered novi koji na svetskoj sceni čini mi se da promaja nos i da polako se pojavljuje, me ne čini baš ni nužno veselim, jer ja sam čovjek desnice, volim poredak, volim da stvari budu predvidive, da se poštuju principi. Mislim da ulazimo u neku fazu turbulencija na svetskom nivou, ali Bože moj, to može biti dobro, ako dobro iskoristite, može biti loše, o tom potom vidjet ćemo da ste vi živi i zdravi. Još jednom veliki pozdrav, ako to budu gledali vaši sugrađani u Makedoniji, za sve Makedonce i kažem što bolja saradnja i ekonomija i kulturna saradnja i putovanja i da se upoznamo bolje za one koji se ne poznaju dovoljno i to nije mala stvar.
Hvala vam puno.
Hvala vama.
Ви благодарам за вниманието со кое не следевте. Се гледаме повторно следната недела. Довидување.